My name is Marcia Questel. I am a BCBA. I work here at the Child Studies Center with Dr. Roger Joe. I am a research fellow here. I'm also the content editor and externship coordinator at the Association for Science and Autism Treatment. I've been working with neurodiverse individuals for 22 years. So I started with a family member of mine and then moved on to do my education, my training, and my clinical work in this space, working mostly with people with autism and also with people with other neurodiverse diagnoses, including ADHD and just other types of behavioral or emotional dysregulation issues. And I do consulting for families, I do consulting for staff and schools, but right now my focus is on research and academia. So thank you so much for joining me today. I'm so excited that you're here, and we are going to get started with the presentation. If you want to learn anything more about what I'm doing or what I'm interested in researching, you can go to marciaquestel.com. So this talk is sponsored by Spark. Every person with autism is different, and therefore every person's story and participation is important. Spark is an incredible resource for research. It's also an incredible resource for participants. And so if you're interested in learning more about Spark and what that's all about, you can email our team here at sparkforautism@yale.edu. Or you can call us at 203-785-7539. And just so you know, that's not a central line, that's actually the phone on my desk. So you can feel free to call that number and you'll probably be speaking with me or someone on my team. Also, we want to tell you about Casey Sparks. This is the Cultural Autism Studies at Yale group. We are meeting up through meetup.com, so you can find Project Casey there. We are doing a lot of incredible work, having amazing discussions about autistic culture and the autistic experience. We welcome allies to the community, we welcome family members, and if you want to hear a bit about what we've been discussing, you can also check out Dr. Joe's YouTube channel at Dr. Roger Joe, that's J-O-U. And there you can find some of our recordings, and that is also where the recordings for these talks will be. So if you ever missed one of these talks and you'd like to check it out, you can go there. Also, I always love to talk about ASAT, the Association for Science and Autism Treatment. We have a monthly newsletter. I urge you to go to asatonline.org and sign up because it is just a monthly newsletter and it's really rich and full of really good scientifically based information. There's no snake oil salesman, there's no pitching. It's really just about trying to bring evidence-based information to families and individuals who need it, as well as professionals. And you'll find there's something for everyone there. So go check out ASAP. Okay, so to talk about today's objectives, we're going to review a little bit of what we talked about last time, the importance of parental involvement in the IEP process and how they can be empowered. And again, this is covered in more detail in the previous talk. I can send you the recording if you reach out to me, but also you can, again, check out Dr. Joe's YouTube page and you can find the recording there. If you want the slides or if you want to have a discussion about it or ask me any questions, feel free to reach out. We're also going to outline issues related to the IEP process. We'll illustrate how to prepare for your IEP meeting, explain issues that arise from parent and professional perspectives, and demonstrate how to avoid those issues and ultimately address them if they do arise. Okay, so today is all about the IEP and just avoiding issues related to the IEP. So just a little bit about my experience. I have attended many IEP meetings. I've done that as a family member, an advocate, as a behavior analyst, as an educator, and as a consultant. So I have sat at this table and, engaged in the IEP process from many angles. So let's just say I've been around the block. I've seen my fair share of discussions about developing IEPs, and it's really, really important to try and make this as collaborative as a process as possible. But today we're going to talk about what happens when that doesn't go so well and how to try to make it go better. Okay, so why is the IEP process so hard? So you may have just recently filled out evaluations about your child, asking you some pretty hard questions, trying to come up with some quantifiable information that seems foreign to you, trying to describe your child in particular terms. Your child may have completed a bunch of evaluations for themselves or had to sit through testing and met with evaluators that are strangers to them. You might be feeling like you're trying to fit a square into a circle hole and just feeling like, I don't know where my child's educational needs are going to be met, how they're going to be met, what's the best thing for them, and how can I have them fit into a system that may or may not be built for their needs. It's so hard because it's a giant table of people. Oftentimes there's so many people represented from the school district that you're working with, and it can be very intimidating. You might be poring over tons of documents, evaluations, doing research, trying to find out the laws, trying to figure those things out, trying to just make sense of everything that's being brought to you. And at the same time, you need to continue feeding your family. You need to continue trying to get some sleep amidst all the research that you're probably doing in the middle of the night after a long day at work or at home. The dishes may be piling up. Real life is still happening. People might need some doctor's appointments and self-care. So amidst all of these things, you need to take care of yourself somehow and arrive at this meeting with some amount of rest and some amount of confidence. So, this banner of self-care for parents is sometimes quite laughable, but some do accomplish it better than others. And I just want to say, this is why it's so hard, because the IEP process doesn't happen in a vacuum. You can't just stop everything else that you have to do. And in fact, it just adds a whole new level of work to your life that, is probably out of your wheelhouse if you're a parent with a newly diagnosed child. So it's time for our first poll. So I'm going to send a poll through the Zoom. So I'm going to ask you to tell me a little bit about your experience with IEP meetings. So if you can just take a few seconds and fill that out. There's 3 questions. Have you ever attended an IEP meeting? Simply yes or no. If so, how many have you attended? And then what were your feelings generally like during that meeting? Or if you've attended many meetings, what could you say your feelings were generally like? So give it about a minute and then we'll see what the results are. Okay, so let's just check out the results. It's split. Some have been to IEPs, some have not yet. Plenty of people are going to their first one soon or haven't been to too many. A bit split on your response about how it's going. Okay. Got it. All right. Thank you so much for participating in that. Okay. So don't forget, these meetings are typically once per year. So prepare your best in advance. Okay. You're going to want to keep a binder or a notebook, something that you can keep with you throughout the year. Write down your thoughts, jot down things, maybe even keep printouts of emails or things that you're just thinking about. Just make sure you're prepared. But don't be afraid to request a meeting or an amendment to the IEP, which can be done in writing when goals need to be updated. So if your child needs a change, or if your goals need to be updated, or if you have a change in transportation or you move or something like that, you can request. You don't have to wait for once a year. You can request that. In your preparation, ask lots of questions. It's very important that you have a very thorough grasp and understanding of what your child's evaluation results mean. We go into that in the previous talk a bunch, so go ahead and check out that recording if you didn't see it. Again, for those of you who joined us a little later, that's on Dr. Joe's YouTube channel, Dr. Roger Joe, J-O-U. So, and again, if you want the slides or if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. But again, in your preparation for your IEP, please ask lots of questions. Everyone in your circle should be welcoming. Everyone should be able to make themselves available to review evaluations with you, answer your questions, and help you participate in the IEP goal development. Okay, so a lot of times what happens is parents arrive to the IEP meeting sometimes not even having received the results of evaluations. They're seeing them for the first time in the IEP meeting. That is not correct. So make sure that you have all the evaluations. Reach out to the person who's at the head of the meeting, who's in charge of scheduling. Say, I want to make sure I have a copy of all evaluation results. I have questions about the process. Can someone meet with me ahead of the meeting? Whatever questions you have, and make sure that you make time, schedule time with the people who did the evaluations to go over the results if you haven't seen them or haven't been able to go over them yet. We're going to review some of the information about your rights next, but again, this is going to be a little quick because we did talk about it last time, but just in case anyone's new, want to touch on it today. So the importance of parental involvement in the IEP process and how they can be empowered. Again, it's on the YouTube channel, or you can email me if you want to go over anything or get the slides for yourself. So this is from the CSE from New York State website. Information provided by parents regarding their child's strengths and needs is a vital part of the evaluation. So what information you have from your experience with your child, which is the most important, you should bring to the table, and it should be seen as a vital part of the information in the goal development. All members of the committee share the responsibility to contribute meaningfully. Okay, so the concerns of the parent and the education of their child, right, should be empowered. And this is, again, in the New York State government website. Every state has their own website about IEPs, so wherever you live, go ahead and check that out. Again, from the New York side, parent input is solicited, discussed, and given meaningful consideration in the development of the IEP. Also, recommendations are written in a language that the parents and educators can understand. So if your native language is not English, you have a right for all of the IEP documents to be given to you in your native language, or for translation services to be provided to you, but hopefully both. And what processes and procedures are in place for parents and school personnel to inform the CSE if the student's not likely to meet their annual goals by the end of the year? So this is something that you should be thinking about. This is something that is on the website that the New York State government says we need processes and procedures to go over if the child is not meeting their IEP goals. This is from Connecticut, and I linked the Parents Guide to Special Education in Connecticut here as well. So this just goes over who is on the planning and placement team. So in New York, it's called the CSE, that's the Committee of Special Education. In Connecticut, it's called PPT, Planning and Placement Team. So again, just look at how many times parents are brought up on this. You are a huge part of your team, and your seat at the table is just as, if not so much more meaningful than anyone else sitting at your table. So please keep that in mind. This is again just from that Parents Guide in Connecticut. The parent can request in writing the results of their initial assessments at least 3 school days before the referral meeting and the placement team meeting that will discuss the results for the first time. So you can request those at least 3 days in advance to receive those results if you haven't yet. So please do that. Also, and this is written in a whole bunch of jargon, you can request for someone to go over those results with you. Okay, so it is a legally binding document. Your IEP is a contract with your district that has to follow the law of the land. So federal laws regarding education of children with special needs and state laws that are local to each state. So it is a legally binding document. It's a contract, and the goals that are in there need to be great. So you want to make sure that you have a thorough understanding of what your rights are, as well as what's available to you and what goals can look like. So again, please go check out that previous recording because we go into this in much more detail. Something I just want to say before I move on is that a note that we made in the last talk, you are the person with your child throughout their lifetime. This team is going to change year after year. Different people are involved, different teachers are involved, different therapists are involved. The whole team at that big table is going to change except you, your child, and whatever other family members you bring in. You are the only people that stay the same typically. Sometimes there's longstanding, committee members that do stay the same, but the point is you're the most important people at the table. So parents are often told that, right? That they're the most important people at the table besides the child. I do encourage, if you want to consider having your child at the meeting. There is some evidence to say that when a child attends at least a portion of the meeting, it can sort of release some of the tension in the room and some of the feeling that we're talking about an abstract person through abstract numbers. So having the child there, if it's feasible for at least some of the time, is good. Some older students and some young students like to raise their concerns about what they want. And that's especially important when it comes to transition services. So as the child gets older and becomes an adult or a teen, they can definitely advocate for some things that they want. That would be great. So parents are told they should speak up. They're the leaders of the team, right? They are their child's best advocates. You know them best, but you can be told that all day and still feel overwhelmingly stressed about this, right? We went over this pretty triggering graphic earlier in the beginning of the talk about all of the things that you have on your plate when it comes to IEP preparation. It can be extremely emotional, it can be extremely confusing, and you can feel quite disillusioned when you are there at the meeting. When a parent feels disappointed or frustrated by their IEP team, they often feel that way because of one of the following reasons, among others. The parent doesn't feel heard. They feel like things that they're bringing up are not being validated, are not being acknowledged. Parent feels as though the child is not having their needs met. So they're stressed, they're emotional. My child has needs that are not being met, and the IEP team is not agreeing with me or validating my opinion. The parent feels talked over and cannot understand the information that's being shared so quickly. So a lot of times people on the team might use some jargon or lots of acronyms, right? I mean, there's like an acronym cloud going around sometimes of just like IEP, CSE, BIP, 504, like what do all of these terms mean, right? And it can be really frustrating to feel sort of lost in the mix. So if a parent doesn't feel heard during the meeting, a parent may begin to express their emotions regarding their child's diagnosis, their needs, or their struggles. Rather than feeling validated and understood, parents report feeling as though their expressions of grief, struggle, or confusion were brushed off or hurried along, right, for the sake of time. While they understand that there are many families to serve, they feel as though not enough time and attention was given to their unique perspectives. So that's really common, right? You just feel like people are not hearing you, you are being rushed, you're not being acknowledged, and it's very frustrating. Outnumbered. So I'm not sure why Mr. Barth always feels compelled to bring an advocate to the IEP. Because you can have all of these people from the district there, and you bring someone in with you, and they're just like, whoa, why do you feel like you need to bring someone in with you? It's like, well, you have 80 people, not 80, you have all these people at the table with you, and you're supposed to be there alone? No, you can bring an advocate with you, it's no problem. How to avoid the parent doesn't feel heard for staff who are watching this. Well, the IEP meeting is formal and must be run as efficiently as possible. Be mindful about making validating statements to share your concern as to what the parent is going through prior to moving on. So IEP season is really hard for all staff involved, and that's true. And you have so many people, with so many diverse concerns, and so many varying evaluations and varying timelines and needs. So it is hard, and you have a lot of meetings in blocks, typically over several days. So it does have to be run efficiently. But if the parent is raising concerns, try to avoid that impulse to rush them along or to sort of say, yeah, we'll get to that another time. Make sure that the solutions your team creates adequately support the skills the parent is concerned about, or that they serve to promote prerequisite skills that are foundational to those in the future. So if the parent is talking about something that, seems to be aiming too far away from where the child is currently performing, you can say something about, oh, I see how that's a concern to you. Let's see how we can implement some prerequisite goals in order to meet that need. While there are many scheduling considerations for all members of the team, like I said, it's really hard to get all these professionals in the same place at the same time. They all have their own schedules. If you think about like a speech pathologist has so many kids to see or groups of kids to see in a day. So they have to stop that or change that in order to attend one of these meetings. And again, they have so many. That's just one professional. Then there's OTs, PTs, special educators, all of the leads on the team. So it can be very challenging. There's a ton of scheduling to do. So, delay leads to greater scheduling conflicts typically, but staff can work to prevent this by building time into the planning of the meeting for parents to discuss their greatest concerns. Rather than keeping those meetings so closely back to back, give a little bit more wiggle room. And especially if you think that this is a new parent to the district or that they have some very serious concerns or they've never done this before, maybe consider giving them some extra time. Okay, so takeaways for parents. While your perspectives and feelings should and must be heard, do your best to move the conversation points into a direction of solutions. Rather than simply venting things like, I feel like my son is constantly left out and he never gets his social needs met. That's sort of a dead end. It's true, right? It may be the biggest concern that you have, but it's not something that is going to necessarily lead to a productive conversation. It's going to lead to others feeling maybe defensive or feeling like, I don't know, that they're being attacked if it's like an angry complaint. So emotions are still at play here for everyone at the table. So try to phrase your concern by saying something like, I feel like my child is falling behind socially. Like you're still saying the valid statement and that they may never catch up. What can we do to make sure he's making progress during social times, like gym, lunch, and recess? Like, what can we do about it? What can we do? What can we put in place? Be sure to ask specific questions as often as you can. And again, that comes with the preparation part. How can we measure those goals in order to keep track of them? So if somebody says, oh, well, we're going to pair them up with a buddy. So we have this peer mentoring team and we're going to make sure that someone's with them. See if they can increase some of their social language during recess. Well, how are we going to measure that? How are we going to keep track of that? Can we make it into a formal IEP goal? Because I want this to happen. What will we do next if he masters a skill? So let's say you work on greetings, okay? So during recess, your child learns to say, hey, Joey, hey, Sarah, hey, Tommy, hey, Jill, and they learn greetings. Okay, that's the IEP goal and they master it super fast. What's next? Do we have a system in place? Do we have to amend the IEP every time? Or do we have a nice list of healthy goals to work on over time? In this way, you're raising your greatest concerns and still, as you might need to, vent about how upset you are about it. But you're pointing the conversation in a direction of solutions and you're working with your team to create goals that will address those concerns. Okay, so getting it to be a productive conversation, even though you still need to let your feelings out about it, it's very important. This will allow the team to understand your child's unique situation and take the next step of creating practical goals that meet those needs. When a parent feels disappointed or frustrated by their IEP team, they often feel that way because of one of the following reasons. They don't feel heard, or again, they feel like their child is not having their needs met. So let's go into number 2. Parent may feel as though the IEP team is not serving the child's needs individually, rather that they're providing cost-effective supports that fit into the school district's budget. They may feel that there's some type of stigma or targeting occurring with the child, such as they're purposefully not being offered supports that the parent feels would be appropriate for them. Like, I know that you guys provide this to other students. I talk to other parents in the community. Why can't my child have it? This is a very stressful and combative situation that requires immediate and delicate management in order to prevent further escalation of tensions. But did you know, and I love, this is an Instagram that I think you should follow if you use social media. The Intentional IEP is a great Instagram. So did you know IEPs are written based on the needs of the student, not based on what the services the school has? Okay, so the IEP is for you. Did you know that IDEA requires that children with disabilities be allowed to participate in all services offered by a public school district, including extracurricular activities? Okay, so you're mandated, the district staff, they're mandated to provide every opportunity to your child that they offer to all students. Okay, so if the parent feels as though their child is not having their needs met for staff, avoid mentioning budgeting, okay? Or logistical concerns during IEP meetings. This happened to me once with my own family member, once of many, where someone said, well, your child doesn't qualify for the reading group anymore because we don't have room in our schedule. We have students with more serious reading needs than your child. And we said, well, that's against the law, so it doesn't matter. If you have a staffing shortage, you need to address it, right? Because that's the law, right? The child has scores that imply that they need reading support. They must be provided with reading support. So it was kind of like a catch in the meeting where we said, okay, so what are you going to do about it now? First, the law states that the child's education be individualized. So the struggles of the administration to meet the needs of every other individual have no place in the meeting, regardless of their reality. Okay, I'm not saying it's not a reality. I'm not saying it's not a concern. They don't have infinite money, but it has no place in the IEP meeting to talk about budgets or hiring or logistics. This is a very intense meeting, and the parent is here raising concerns about their child, and they don't need to hear about your staff shortages. Second, doing so may cause the parent to feel as though their child is being left out, okay, of services because of cost or logistics, rather than the fact that the services are not appropriate for their child at the current time. That may very well be that it's not appropriate for the child at the current time, but then that's what needs to be discussed, not anything else. If the staff are in agreement that the services are simply not applicable to the child's needs or otherwise don't align with the child's current goals, that's where the focus should be. Do your best to explain that the aforementioned supports simply do not apply to their child yet, but that it will be noted and addressed at a later time. Further, you may consider adding IEP goals that are supportive of the needs of the child in a similar fashion to the sought-after supports, and perhaps provide clear scaffolding to more prerequisite skills that graduate to that service that the parent is asking for. So if you feel like, well, the social skills group is a collection of students that have a particular level of social communication skills, and this child will not benefit from that because what they're working on, this child's not ready for. Okay, that doesn't mean they can't get there eventually. And here's what we're going to do in order to prepare them for that service. Here's the IEP goals in writing on this legally binding document to say, we are working on social communication and it's in a better way for your particular child. Inform them that the child's current needs require other specific skill building and offer those solutions that lead to the service being possible in the future. If the service appears entirely out of line with the child's skills and deficits, consider setting up a separate meeting with the parent privately. Okay, because a parent may be seeing something at home that you're not seeing. They may think the child can do something that you think they cannot do. or they think the child can't do something that you believe they can do. So staff need to make time to meet on a bridge and say, okay, here's where we differ in our perspectives. Here's what we are seeing versus what you're seeing. And it might take a separate meeting if the parent's desires and goals for the child are just way different than what the CSE or IEP meeting has found. Because if you try to fight about it and no one is meeting in the middle, the stress of the CSE meeting will be compounded with the emotional strain of arguing about that. Remind the parent that the IEP will continue to be drafted during the meeting, right? So we're gonna just kind of put a pin in that particular thing. And we're gonna continue going over drafting the remainder of the IEP, but we're not gonna complete it until that private meeting happens or until we have time to thoroughly go over that goal. Then both parties will have the time and preparation to discuss the parent's request, the reality of the child's situation, and how to best meet their current needs. And the parent should be provided ample time to discuss their perspective and feel understood. And they'll be assured that the decision to deny that service is not being made hastily or for any other reason. So if we just say like, listen, trust us, that's not the right program for the child, we need to move on in the IEP, we don't have time for this, the parent is going to feel so frustrated. The parent is going to feel, again, like they're not being heard, like they're not having their child's needs met. So if we instead say, let's definitely talk more about that privately so that we can really get into the weeds about it and have a thorough conversation on our own. Parents, while you may be mindful of the logistical and budgeting hurdles that school district staff must manage for the entire population of students within their district, avoid bringing that up during the meeting. So, they shouldn't bring it up and you shouldn't bring it up. Don't say, well, if you guys had more money to hire another speech pathologist, my child could have that. Or, I know that you're in the middle of some hiring drama or you just fired so-and-so. If we're not having staff bring that up at the meeting, you should not bring it up at the meeting either. Even if you know something true from an inside scoop, don't bring it up. If you're truly aware that a service is not being provided, that is in your heart and mind is totally appropriate for your child, and you've asked for it and it's been rejected, it may be more productive at the IEP meeting to simply ask why. What supports or goals should be added to the IEP that will allow my child to access that service or support later? Again, just keep asking questions and keep seeing, if you're not doing that, what are you doing to prepare for that? And I want it in writing on my IEP. Ask what data or assessments will be used to measure it, right? Not just what are you going to do? How are we going to measure it and ensure that it is effective and that what the treatment that they're receiving or the intervention or the skill that's being built, how it's being measured is really important, right? And what are you going to use to say that they are ready for that service or that they don't need that service? Okay, what's going to be done to scaffold their progress in the meantime? It's important not to engage in accusatory statements. These simply express anger and don't adequately express your real concerns. Even though you might be feeling angry, your concern is deeper than that, and you don't want it to get lost in just them seeing you as angry. It also can put the staff in a position of defense, right? So they may have otherwise felt that they were on your team. They just don't agree with you, but they really do want what's best for your child. We don't know, every team is different, every staff member is different, but if you did have staff that were more or less, really dedicated to your child's individual growth, now they feel like, well, why are you accusing me of something? Like, I'm here for you. I just think that we should do something different. So if you've expressed your concerns as politely as possible, you understand the reasons behind the district's decision, but you still feel that a service is being withheld, then it definitely may be time to speak with an advocate or a lawyer regarding your situation. That person can help you learn the laws about the issue and help you decide the next steps that you must take to prove that an appropriate service is being withheld. So, getting a lawyer involved can be scary, it can be time consuming, can definitely be costly. But if you feel like, you're really just not being heard or your child's not getting what they should, then it may be a worthwhile consideration. Okay, so we talked about not being heard, child not having their needs met. Number 3 is that they feel talked over and cannot understand the information that's being shared so quickly. Parents feel like many times they're learning to navigate the special education world and what services and supports are available. They're also reviewing lengthy evaluations. They're learning whole new sets of vocabulary that they've never heard before. Right? This is very overwhelming. And again, the imagery we showed at the beginning of the meeting, like you're researching everything. You're up in the middle of the night reading stuff after your child goes to bed. You're really taxed emotionally and physically. You're super invested and stressed about this, and you're trying your best to wrap your head around it. And still, like, you feel like everyone's talking over you and you just can't keep up with what they're talking about. Parents may not understand all the terminology being used again during the meeting. They may be distracted by their own racing thoughts and emotions. They may become really frustrated. They may feel as though the team's talking over their head and just simply going to create the IEP without parents' full understanding. So I put up the Charlie Brown parents noise, the big trombone noise, because that's what it can sound like sometimes when folks are talking over you, right? We don't understand them, we can barely hear them, and it could be something to fall asleep to. So for staff, just ensure that all the acronyms that you're using and the vocabulary that you're using are fully explained to the parents, right? They're a vital component of the CSE process, of the IEP process. So, you want to include the parents' full support and acceptance of the IEP that you're providing for their child. So they have to fully understand it. Be proactive in explaining what the assessments truly measure in ways that can be understood more easily. Instead of just saying like, this is an EF examination, right? Or this is just executive functioning. Like, what does that mean? This is a test of executive functioning, which means it's used to examine things like organization, planning, inhibition, impulse control, like working memory, trying to hold more than one thought in your head while you're doing other things, right? Really explain it. Take a moment or two to explain it. Consider creating and sending packets of definitions and explanations that will guide parents, right? So I always recommend to districts, like if you have an IEP preparation packet that's like, okay, here you go. Every year we send you the IEP preparation packet with definitions, explanations of common evaluations that are discussed, things like that. The parent can read it prior to meeting. Don't give it to them at the meeting. That's not enough time. So doing so will help the parents feel more supported and guided rather than challenged and bombarded with information. Be patient when answering questions. Make sure the parent's been given enough time. Again, time, something that keeps coming up over and over. We really need to make sure we have enough time to fully understand things, right? Make sure that they understand your answers to their questions. Make sure you follow up and say, like, do you fully understand that? You don't want anything to be left unclear. And for parents, review your evaluations, okay? Again, I talked about this before, like, if you get an evaluation, don't just file it, don't just send it off to a therapist. You must review it. If you don't understand it, you must meet with the evaluator or someone on your IEP team to go over it. Make sure you make the time to do that because it is extremely impactful in the IEP goal development process. Okay, you need to know the definitions of your child's diagnosis or diagnoses, types of services and supports available within your district, right? Make sure that you do all that prep to get a full understanding before the meeting. Like I talked about, having a notebook or a binder, write down your notes, write down any definitions that are tricky for you, write down things that interest you, things that you were excited about the district offers, especially if they apply to your child. If you can, make an appointment with an advocate or your doctor or school psychologist, those who perform the evaluations, let them know that you have questions and you want to go over some of those things and the long-term applications. This will help you from preventing, it'll help you not be so overwhelmed with the new terms and it will help you not be so stressed during the actual meeting. Do your best to be prepared by bringing whatever notes you can, a notepad and a pen, water, small snack like a granola or a protein bar in case you end up waiting while another team meeting is finishing. You're sitting in the hallway, you're nervous. Bring something like, maybe cough drops. Make sure that you feel like you can do what you can to keep your body calm, that you feel hydrated, that you're not starving, right? Anything like that is going to add to the stress of the situation. Do not schedule any other appointments if you can avoid it. I know sometimes we can't, but don't schedule other appointments before or after your CSE or your IEP meeting, right? If possible, do your best to get a full night's rest the night before. I know, like sometimes you definitely cannot, but try your best to get some good rest and don't schedule things on either side of the IEP meeting. This will help you to navigate and regulate your emotions, right? Throughout all the information that's being discussed, discussing out loud your child's strengths and their weaknesses and what services the district has prepared for you. Try your best to write down your questions the day before, okay? It's like going to the doctor. You leave the doctor and you're like, oh my gosh, I should have asked them X, Y, and Z, and it's something important. I wish I could go back. You can't go back. You have to reschedule that meeting all over again. So make sure you write down your questions before so that like in the morning, you're not struggling trying to remember everything that you need to remember. Feeling well prepared will help you to understand the process and make decisions that you agree with and disagree with easier to discuss before signing the IEP. Remember, you can always take a moment in the hall, say like, I need to go call my spouse, I want to call a family member, I need to speak with my advocate, I need a 5-minute recess, I'll be right back. You need to go use the bathroom, put some water on your face, whatever. If that person isn't there with you, you can step out and call them. If you need to, you can table a meeting. Okay, so you try to avoid that, but if you need to, table it. Right? Everyone is going to be a little bit frustrated by that. Let them be frustrated, doesn't matter. That just means you need time to think about what's being discussed and you'll reconvene at a later date. Just know that gathering all that staff a second time is an inconvenience, right? It may delay the process of the IEP. So just do it if you really must. But if you must, you have that right. Okay, you are the most important member of your child's team. You must fully understand and accept the recommendations within the IEP. The district will simply be required to meet again. So if you need to table it, table it. So the first rule about IEP Fight Club is we don't talk about IEP Fight Club. I love Fight Club. No, really, we don't. So like get everything in writing. Don't talk about things. You meet with a person outside in the hallway, like a staff member, or you have one of those private meetings where they go over something with you. Everything has to be in writing. Do not accept anything that is going to happen for your child because we always do that if it's not in writing. Put things in emails, have things printed and put into your binder. Make sure everything is in writing. The IEP meeting is made for you. Okay, you need to fully understand what's going on in your IEP. I linked a little bit of history about IEPs and laws and sort of the development of the IEP process. And again, it's a legally binding document. Scary at first, but it can be the most helpful and exciting part of the year if you feel great about it. So if you do walk in all prepared and confident and you've got your water and your snack and everybody has met with you that needs to meet with you before this and you're all excited about the goal development for this year, that's great. You must be prepared. Email staff to discuss options, ask lots of questions, write everything down, record. You can record your meetings. So make sure you check state laws, but most states allow you to record any discussion you have with another person. So you can record the meeting on like an app or a voice recorder. Knowing what you want versus knowing what you can ask for, like just knowing your rights, knowing that you've met with the people that you need to meet with. The more confident and prepared you are, again, the smoother your IEP process is going to be. Bring in a partner, a family member, advocate, lawyer, whoever. But remember that you have to give advance notice of anyone that's attending the meeting. So you can't just like show up with whoever. Sometimes they'll let them in, but I think they do have a right in most places to say, well, we didn't know they were coming. We need to make sure our lawyer is present. We're going to have to reschedule. So make sure that you give advance notice about anyone who's attending the IEP meeting. And typically, in advance of your IEP meeting, an email will be sent to you saying like, you know, we need to confirm attendance, who's coming with you. But if they don't send that, then you need to go ahead and send that email. Don't start a fight just because you're ready to have one. Okay, so you might be all prepared to have a fight because you did all this great research and you know what to ask for and you feel like you're ready to roll your sleeves up. You want this to be a collaborative process. Okay, these are the people that you want working with you. You may be surprised in a good way by what your district offers you. You can be prepared for a fight without needing to. So like, it's really nice to have that strength that you can fight for these rights or fight for these services and not need to. Totally fine. The table is full of human beings, okay? So at some point they decided they wanted to work with children as their profession and they wanted to help them live better lives. Some people are jaded, some people have been in this industry too long, some people really need to retire, but we do want to just be respectful, okay? Some other people haven't slept. They have their own lives going on. They may not have the emotional tolerance for a fight today. So even if you're ready for a fight, that doesn't mean you have to have one. So I love this image. It says, my child has an IEP, an involved, educated parent. The fact that you're here or in the future you're watching this video, it means so much. Your child is lucky to have you. Thanks so much for joining us. It's time for our second poll. This is just a short answer. What would be the most helpful thing or things for you to remember or advice for you to give others prior to going into an IEP meeting? Okay, so it's not showing on your end, but number one said be prepared. Another person said exactly the same thing, be prepared. The other person said make sure you know what your child's needs are. Read, make sure you're expressing clearly. I love that idea. Thank you so much for sharing that. Great. Okay. So thank you so much for being here. Again, thank you so much to my PI, Dr. Roger Joe, for your support and letting this series happen. Thank you to all of the neurodiverse individuals that we serve and that we have in our community. They're doing an amazing job sharing their experiences with us and guiding these processes in the development of better laws and better systems of service and support. Thank you to Spark at Yale, because Spark, again, is powering autism research today, doing incredible work there. So if you're interested in Spark or Casey, please reach out to me. And thank you to Yale School of Medicine and the Yale Child Studies Center. Time for questions. I am going to stop the recording first. And here's the list of the upcoming talks.